Well, good afternoon, everyone. This week and a half before Turkey Day, and it is Monday, November 13th, a rare Monday episode in Advancement Live land. I'm your host, Kim Infante, and I'm excited today to talk to you about a topic that's on many of our minds with Giving Tuesday, not only Turkey Day, but Giving Tuesday right around the corner, and many of us thinking, how do we make this experience for our donors easy? How do we drive them to our online giving forms? How do we get them through that process of giving, not only easily, but quickly in this day and age when folks are looking for that quick transaction? So we'll dive into that this afternoon. Advancement Live is part of the Higher Ed Live network. Our episodes offer you direct access to some of the best and brightest minds in education. And you can be part of these live broadcasts by sharing your own knowledge. So really what's important to us as we go through today's episode is for you to tweet us questions, tweet us your comments, let us know what's working for you. If you hear us say something that you feel differently about or that you'd like to add to, just shoot us a tweet. I'll be monitoring Twitter, so I am paying attention, just keeping an eye on tweets. And that hashtag to use so that we see it is hashtag HigherEdLive. All of our episodes are free. They are easy to access in the video archive at higheredlive.com, or you can always take Higher Ed Live with you. We do have a podcast that you can subscribe to. Today's episode is made possible by iModules. We're lucky to have a guest from iModules joining us, and we'll let you meet him in just a bit. And Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner. It is a digital-first agency committed to tailored solutions that drive real results. If you are looking to improve your institution's digital marketing strategy and execution, you really know that you need to make really data-driven decisions. Connect digital back to your strategic goals. And so you can educate your entire team in the latest digital marketing strategies and trends on December 6th. That is during M. Stoner's Digital Marketing for Higher Education online conference. And we will tweet out a link about that conference in just a little bit. Without further ado, joining us just in the nick of time, she got her technology rolling from Fordham University. It is Elaine Ezrapour. I didn't even have a chance to ask you, Elaine, if I said that correctly, so I hope that I did.
Yep.
Elaine is Assistant Director of the Fordham Fund. She oversees affinity giving for Fordham University, and she looks at all their crowdfunding projects. They're a school that uses GiveCampus. She spearheads Fordham's peer-to-peer asking program, really takes a strong look at direct mail for Fordham, and she knows what Central New York is like. She's a graduate of Binghamton University, just an hour south of where I am in Syracuse, and now working for Fordham. So welcome, Elaine. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Kate, the Purdue Research Foundation. Kate Jolly is charged with overseeing email strategy. I just talked to Kate recently about Purdue's Day of Giving because it is one that many of us aspire to be like Purdue and what you've been able to accomplish for your giving day. And of course, you can't have a successful giving day without really having a successful online giving program. And so I'm excited to have Kate with us today. She's a two-time degree holder from Purdue University, and she said she's just as cold as we are here in Central New York.
Perfect, thank you.
Awesome. And then finally, Mirko from iModules. Mirko is no stranger to all of us. Mirko told me he's just about to fly to Florida in December. He's sick of the cold. And so Mirko is Senior Account Manager and Client Consultant for iModules. And prior to that, he worked at Wilkes University in Alumni Relations and Annual Giving. And so Mirko can really bring some great perspective across the whole client picture for who he's working with for iModules. And that was a lot of words to introduce everybody and introduce the show's topic. So I'm excited to dive right into it today. And I'll start with Kate. Really, as you look back to when you joined the Purdue team, you started working with iModules, what are you most proud of when you look at the giving form that Purdue uses today versus that giving form maybe 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think we're most proud of the simplicity and the clean design, and we've enhanced that over the past couple years that we've been with iModules. Before, our online giving form was just a hairy nightmare, and if you went to it, you would have been overwhelmed. And I think we had a really didn't have a great online presence, and that started when we went to iModules in about 4 years ago.
So when you say simple, what is it? And we'll dive in as the episode progresses as to what exactly we're asking for. But I mean, you're not asking for a life story. And I think a lot of schools and sometimes the higher ups within, or even the folks who are more of the back end, the ones who have to process gifts, think, well, we have to get that information. How did you get past that at the
Yeah, we put it back on the people wanting the information. So would you fill out this form? If you're looking at it, would you take the 10 extra minutes to answer all of the questions that you're asking? That's almost a survey rather than just a transaction or making your gift. And then what are you going to use that information? Are you going to use it? So a lot of people want to ask preferred method of contact. Well, if I fill out mail, are you only going to mail to me? Probably not. So then you're going to really upset the user. So I think just every question has to fight for its place on the form. And that's really what we talk about with each question, and even paring it down for different initiatives. So on our day of giving, we don't ask for a phone number. It's not something that we want people in and out. So varying it by the type of initiative that it's for.
Awesome. Elaine, how would you answer that question, the giving form of today versus the giving form of yesteryears at Fordham?
Sure. Well, similar to Kate, I would say our form definitely has a more modern and sleek feeling now than it did several years ago. And it really feels more Fordham-esque than it had too. I would say, with the revised maybe color scheme or language or word selection, in terms of the labeling of the particular forms, they just feel a little bit more Fordham, as does the email follow-up to the transaction and to the donation. So that would definitely be a highlight for us now. We've also made the form a bit more condensed in the layout. So whereas it took several pages for a donor to get through the gift giving process now, or a lot of scrolling at the very least, now things look a little bit more condensed, and it looks less of a daunting process for a donor to get through. And I would say that's a really nice aspect of our giving form today.
Awesome. Kate, you kind of answered this in the last question, but I mean, I think of, I wake up in the middle of the night and remember that we really need a refrigerator filter, and I hop on Amazon and I press one button and boom, the refrigerator filter is on its way. Life is so exciting these days. Anyway, so as your customers are looking, or in this case, your constituents are looking for that easy one-click experience. I know giving, can't be one click, but it can be something that's simple. How do you convince internal partners that maybe they're not Amazon users, they're not used to that one-click experience? What were some of the things, and I think you said by turning it back on them, that helped with convincing them to make it easy?
Yeah, and I think just with some of the enhancements we've made with just overall digital strategy, so with emails and having the same email vendor as your online giving, and it allows you to have the user information pre-filled once they click it from the email. So some of those things that do make it Amazon-esque in certain aspects. I know the donor portal, we do have some people logging in and making their gift from there. We've made it really simple with pledge payments. So if a user logs in, they can just click a button and it pre-fills their pledge and the designation of the pledge. And so I think just making those little enhancements to enhance that donor experience. And then you can, we do have some naysayers when we first started the form who didn't necessarily like it. And so we brought in a focus group, and we do that still after the calendar year. We reevaluate and listen to the complaints of donors or people that we've had to try to make our form more user-friendly. I think we did so this year. We now, once you go to the form, the designation pop-up box is the first thing that you see. People didn't know to click other to then search, so they didn't see the fund that they wanted. We made the search bar more prominent for that fact that the carrot expands to have more fun. So I think looking and listening to our donors and making it better for their experience.
So your focus groups that you hold, those are made up of donors or mostly internal partners who are trying to solve this, or you really bring donors to the table?
Oh, it's internal partners. I think just to hear their feedback, especially frontline fundraisers, they are the ones that talking to these donors. So making sure that we bring their feedback to the table.
Awesome. Mirko, I'll have you jump in here. Are you seeing a lot of other schools do that, where, because that's the number one thing we hear. Well, I don't want to give to that fund. I want to find my fund. Is that kind of a common theme, and how do you work with schools to make sure that that is front and center?
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, when you look at all of the research, especially your non-donor population and your younger alumni population are much more likely to give to a designation than to give to the general annual fund. I mean, that's pretty much across the board. So we would encourage all schools to have designations on the giving form. Maybe not to the extent of Purdue, just because they're so large, so they have so many schools and colleges to think about. But make sure that you have some designations that are visible on the form. The other thing that's been a trend, I would say, over the last 5 or so years, and we're seeing it more and more, is that there are designations that are actually still unrestricted dollars that are on the giving form, like general scholarship support. To a donor, that still seems like they're telling you, okay, my money is going to scholarships, not just to this vat of unknowns, right? The black hole, so to speak, which obviously we know isn't the case, but that's donor impression.
Right.
So by putting even scholarship support as one of those options on the first on your form or something similar, you're already giving donors a choice. And for them, they don't know that it's unrestricted dollars. They still, like I said, they still feel like they're designating their gift. So that, I think, is absolutely critical, especially if you're looking to ramp up the number of non-donors that you're bringing on board.
Awesome. Elaine, how did you decide what designations to feature on your form, and how did you navigate those internal battles? I know we faced it, but no, it shouldn't say that, or, you know, no, it should be this fund. So how did you navigate that for you?
Sure. Well, the top priority, of course, is the highest priority of Fordham. So we want to match the priority and the needs of the university with the funds that are highlighted at least at the top of that form. So and those needs now are shifting as we publicly launched a capital campaign for financial aid, as well as have an internal goal to increase the amount of support for unrestricted. So those designations now have shifted in terms of their priority on our giving forms. But when we have those internal conversations with our partners of other areas and units within the university, the way that we can counter those or deal with those accordingly is to create custom giving forms for those areas of the university that they can then showcase on their particular communication as well as on their particular university web pages. And that's definitely a nice aspect and a huge highlight for us in working with iModules and utilizing that form and that platform, is that we can create those custom forms with the respective designations that match the specific units to then provide to those contacts so they can do their marketing accordingly and prioritize their needs accordingly.
Awesome. Kate, do you also do that at Purdue, have the custom giving forms for the different units, being that Purdue is so ginormous?
Yeah, we definitely do. We also have customized giving links for our major gift officers, and then we also are available, and we try to create custom URLs as quick as possible for them if they are closing a gift and they know that the donor gives to athletics, plus the College of Engineering, plus maybe College of Education. So we can create that specific form specifically for that donor. And so especially at calendar year end, that's important. They normally know what donors are going to give and what they're going to give to.
That is high customer service to have a specific form to a specific donor. I mean, that's creme de la creme of online giving, huh?
I think, Kim, what that highlights is the importance of personalization as well. So again, Kate's taking it to the nth degree, but even what Elaine has talked about and what we see a lot is you want to try to personalize the donor experience as much as you can. So if you're on the web page of, I don't know, the School of Communications, and you click Make a Gift, ideally you would only see funds related to the School of Communications because that's what attracted you to make a gift. So by using those designations and creating those groups of designations, when the donor then reaches that giving form, they see those selections specifically to the school or college or however they got to the giving form. Athletics is another great example. That if you're clicking on Make a Gift from athletics, you want to only see athletic-oriented designations. And then by doing that, you're creating that personalized experience and you're avoiding the disjoint for the donor. They click from athletics and they see the Fordham fund or the unrestricted fund first. There's going to be that second of, wait, this doesn't make sense, right? And I think the more that we can avoid that reaction, the better and the more likely that the prospect is going to continue and actually complete their gift.
Right. So then that kind of leads me into the next question I have for you. It's one thing to have these great forms, and when I'm on the athletics page and I click to give, I'm ready to give to athletics. How do we drive folks to these forms? And I'll start with you, Mirko, but then I'd love for Kate and Elaine to weigh in. What are some of the successful strategies you're seeing? Maybe it's an email, maybe it's out on social, maybe it's all of the above, to encourage folks to visit that form in the first place.
Sure. So I think there are a few really easy things that hopefully most everyone's doing, but I just talked about the Make a Gift button on pages on your site, whether that's school pages or your alumni pages, all of your giving pages. That Make a Gift button has to be prominent, it has to stand out, and it has to have the right call to action. So give today, give now, make a gift, any of those work. If it just says giving, for example, the donor's not going to know, or the prospective donor isn't going to know that when they click that, they get right to the giving form. And again, it creates that disjoint. So I think that's a really easy way to make sure that you're making it easy for donors to find your form. The other thing is looking at your communications. So not just the e-solicitations, but also print communications. Is the giving link evident in the print communications? So that people who do want to give online have an easy time just typing in a simple URL to get to your giving form. When we look at the e-solicitation side, a giving link should be in arguably pretty much every communication that is sent out from the larger division. There may be a few exceptions, but your e-newsletter should absolutely have a giving link in it, and ideally some type of giving related story as well. It doesn't have to be a hard ask, but some kind of soft ask about a student receiving a scholarship, or a construction project tied to the campaign, or whatever it is. But you always want to highlight in some way the importance of philanthropic support for the institution. And then also the way you can sort of see what works is by looking at your communications. So what solicitation attracts the most gifts? Is it a print piece? Is it an e-solicitation? Probably a print piece. But then what group is most likely to give from those? Look at your open rates for communications. That can help you tailor your subject line. So there's just some ways to think about how you can not only drive traffic to your site, but then learn from what you've done and learn about what works, and then adjust moving forward.
Perfect. Kate, anything to add on that front, on the driving traffic to these great forms that you've created?
Yeah, kind of like Mirko mentioned with the mailing, we did a test this past year, and it was a very small population, but we sent mail to people who typically only give online, and we didn't have a remit within the mailing. It just had the online giving link. And because we're seeing people go to the online giving from the mail, and so therefore then not wasting postage or anything like that for their reply envelope, but really driving them to the website to give.
And you felt like that was successful?
It was. I mean, we had a good response rate from that, and I think we're going to test it in a couple others pieces this year, mainly our renewals.
Perfect. Elaine, how about you on making it easy? What do you find is the best way to drive traffic to Fordham's page?
Sure. One other major component is social media, and having that giving presence come through via the social media channels and outlets that we have as a university. Something that was interesting on our first ever Giving Day this past April, which is a day primarily driven by social media, was that we found a lot of people were making their way to our Fordham giving form by Googling Fordham University and then clicking on the Give button on our homepage. So even though the message of giving and the links to giving were linked through our Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or Twitter, people were still going to Google, typing in Fordham perhaps at a later time in the day, and then clicking that Give button. So it's important to have a presence of giving through social, but also know that making the Fordham webpage easy as possible to navigate and making that Give button on the home page as prevalent as possible is a major way to attract people and drive people to ultimately making that gift.
Awesome. I'm just putting out a quick poll on Twitter. I want to jump back to what Mirko brought up. What is the giving call to action on your websites? Is it Give Now? Is it Support Purdue? Is it Give Today? Is it Make a Gift? I'm curious to hear Kate, have you guys done any research into what specific call to action works best? I know we have a lot of debates about this internally as to what one sounds best.
Yeah, we're actually testing that this calendar year. So when you're talking about the Purdue or the homepage of the institution, so we always, the Purdue homepage was tiled. And so we had a Give Now tile that starts actually the Monday before Thanksgiving and then runs through the calendar year. And that tile has had an increase in traffic year over year. And this year they changed the layout, and there's a stat about the institution and then a photo behind it. So the stat is going to be relation to our kind of 4 points of our calendar year and mailing, and then underneath it, it's going to be a call to action of like help grant opportunities today or help move the world forward, and that's going to be the giving button. So we're interested to see how that performs over just a Give Now, although there will be a Give Now at the top still. So it'll be interesting to see what people click on.
How about you, Elaine? What do you find works best?
Sure. I mean, we've just kept it simple, and it says give on the university webpage, but we really feel like fostering warm feelings once donors make it to the giving form has helped a lot in terms of conversion rates. Having photos of Florida students or putting the words "thank you" in big bold letters has made the donor experience hopefully warmer and more pleasant, and so they're apt to be more likely to make it through that giving form and make their gift.
Mirko, anything you said any of those can really work, but to be mindful of not just putting the word giving, because that can kind of be confusing to folks. What do I get when I press giving?
Exactly. So that call to action is critical. But I think a number of calls to action can work. I like Purdue's initiative. Definitely keep the Give Now at the top. That's for people who are going to your site for the purpose of giving, right? Especially when you're thinking calendar year end. We all know people who make their donations on December 30th or 31st. December 31st tends to be the day with the highest number of donations and dollar value of donations in the entire calendar year.
Yeah.
So if your main university site does not have a Give Now button, you're forcing those donors to find your giving form in some other way. So that's extremely important to maintain that regardless, or try to get it on there if you don't have it. But then I like what Purdue's trying to do with that tile and more of a call to action that shows impact of giving. So then you actually have both elements, right? When you look at the research, impact of giving is what gets people to actually give. It elicits the response of wanting to give. So you're capturing those people as well as the people who know already that they want to give, and they're ready to click that Give Now button and go to your form.
I think that's a great transition into a question that I have for Elaine, and then I'll have Kate jump in as well. I think so often we think of giving as being a transactional quick, that we just make my $25 gift, bing, bang, boom. But in order to retain our donors, to make them want to have that experience again, it has to go from being transactional to being a transformational experience. So you touched on it a little bit with how your page really features pictures of Florida and big thank you. How do you make them feel good about what they just did so that hopefully they'll come back again?
Sure. Well, I think you really have to think about designing your giving form in line with what your constituents might feel about your institution. So thinking of your word choice, for example, transaction amount versus gift, those sorts of things really do make a difference for the donor as they're navigating their way through the giving form. Again, warm, fuzzy feelings. You want to garner those through perhaps photos of students or photos of the particular school or unit that a donor might be giving through on that giving form for that particular area of the university. And then you want to think about words like, for example, some universities or school might take issue with, maiden name or spouse versus partner. So you just want to kind of think about your word choice in a way that coincides well with your constituent base. And then you want to think about the email follow-up and the type of correspondence a donor might have after making that gift. The immediate follow-up and the subsequent follow-up that comes beyond the email. You have to think about your email being something that's warm and fuzzy and fosters good feelings for your donor, not just a receipt for for a transaction. It should really continue and elongate that positive process for a donor, again with photos, perhaps a heartfelt message, and a thank you, of course. That could often be overlooked, but that should really be the most prominent phrase in any immediate correspondence following that transaction. So thinking about the word choice on your forms, thinking about how you can foster good feelings on those forms, and thinking about the steps beyond the giving form that really can make the experience positive for that donor.
Perfect. I want to jump to Kate's response to that in a minute, but first remind folks that if you have anything to add to this conversation, definitely tweet it to us. The hashtag is HigherEdLive. And so I'm curious, what calls to action work for you? How have you changed your form? It really becomes a great episode when we can have not only our voices joining us, obviously, that you're watching, but also to hear from some of you, or even to ask your questions of Kate, of Mirko, of Elaine, because they've been through this, they've made those tweaks, they've made those edits, and they've seen what works and what doesn't. So just a quick plug there for the hashtag HigherEdLive. And Nikki, I'll go to you and how Purdue has really moved from that transactional boom, I've given my $50 to, wow, I've changed a student's life. What was that transition like?
Yeah, I think Elaine had some good points with the wording on the form. I know when we first went to review our form, our gift processing staff had created the questions that they need in order to process it, and they had headings of donor information or just phrases like that. Well, it's information about you or your information, making it feel like you care about them. It's not just donor information. Same with at the top, it says make or help grant opportunities today rather than make a gift now. Like just little phrasing to make it feel impactful and just feel a little bit more personalized than your Amazon order. And then also utilizing the space on your confirmation page and the email confirmation to the donor, utilizing that for impact or just some feel good rather than just transactional tax receipt. I know we ask people to share why they gave on social media after their gift, and then we monitor those and respond to those. So just making them feel a part of the process too.
Awesome. Mirko, any other trends that you're seeing in the other client schools that you work with about that transformational feeling, or a school that's done something particularly neat in your book?
I think I want to circle back to actually an earlier part of the conversation about fields on the form, because that ties into all of this. And Kate alluded to it, but the forms that a lot of the forms that I look at have a lot of fields on there, and they're fields that aren't needed. So I think that's part of that personalization, and part of that donor mindset approach is when you actually go through and look at every single field on your form and make sure that there's a valid reason that it's on there. For example, a lot of schools ask about why did you choose to make this gift today? And that may be perfectly valid to ask if you are going to use that information in marketing materials or if you're proactively doing something with that. Likely you don't need that field on your form for an entire year because that's too much data, right? So if you do have fields like that, those are the ones to talk about and look at. I think to Kate's point earlier, are you actually doing anything with the data there? It doesn't help you if you're not using the data, and in fact, it makes your form look a little bit more daunting, for lack of a better word, to your potential donors. So I think that's part of the conversation as well. And then I want to circle back to Elaine for a second too, because Fordham uses their confirmation email as their receipt as well for online giving. And I think that's something that some schools are doing and not a lot are doing. But if you think about it, it totally makes sense. Somebody's made an online gift, and your confirmation email of that gift also serves as your receipt, and you do not get a printed receipt mailed to you.
Right.
Why would I get something in the mail if I've made my gift online? Again, there's that disjoint that we're talking about, and you're trying to continue that that relationship with the donor. And immediately after making a gift, you want to avoid those disjoints. You want to keep them engaged in how they're engaging with you, which is online.
Awesome. No, I totally agree with that. And another point, and I don't recall who brought it up, but deciding the amounts that show up on the giving forms. And I think it will depend on particular campaign, but we've had a lot of internal debate as what's that first number. If you are going to put amounts in, and we settled on not having amounts, so you just fill in the blanks. But what have you seen, Mirko? I'll start with you on this. Anything that's emerging from schools is the perfect number to put out first is $50, or is it $250? What have you seen there?
I'm actually going to punt this to Kate because they've done some pretty cool research on gift amounts on preceding the form. So I'll have her talk about it first.
Yes, we like big buttons at Purdue. The joke that we had this over this past summer. But when we first started, we looked at our online giving amounts. And so human behavior is to select the middle button. So we made the middle button a little bit above our average online gift amount at the time. And from that, we've seen our average online gift increase. So we're always evaluating and trying to flip-flop the numbers and figure it out of what's that key number. But the middle button is where someone is drawn to. And I think even having a obscure numbers, so not $50, but $55, because then most likely I'm not going to click other and type in 50 when I was going to the form to select 50. I'm going to make that extra $5 because it's easier for me to select 55.
Oh, that's awesome. We're still pulling some of the data from our giving day, but just anecdotally, the number of gifts, 44 is Syracuse's legendary number, and the number of gifts that came in at 44, 144, $2,000.44. So it was amazing how many included that amount. So we're always thinking, how do you include 44? Do you want to go as low as 44? Do you want to start at 144? So that's interesting to me that we've done that research. Elaine, anything that you've seen on that from Fordham?
We've, in our testing, found that the average gift ultimately is higher without any slotted gift amounts. So we've stripped our giving forms as well as our mail or email solicitations of those.
So Kate, do you have any, and I'm sure you do because Purdue does stats quite well, statistics on conversion rates from your forms and where the majority, and we touched on this a little bit with the printed pieces, but what's working? What's actually converting someone from, oh, hey, this is a cool mail piece to, oh, I'm going to give a gift because of this mail piece? And how are you tracking, is it through, I'm sure, the unique URLs? How do you track those conversion rates?
Yeah, we utilize appeal codes in all of the URLs and then create short links for the different mailings. So giving.purdue.edu my gift for them for mailings. So that's really how we track it, and we have a different URL for each mailing as well as all of our unit mailings. So bands and orchestras or our musical organizations. So it's really great to track that, and we've seen a drastic increase in web link as our category over the past couple of years. Really, our Purdue.edu really drives a ton of traffic. Besides just calendar year end, where we have a more prominent button, it's always in the toolbar at the top, which is consistent across the whole Purdue.edu domain. So that has its own appeal code, and it just increases year over year. Really, also then on our Giving.Purdue site, we have 3 different Give Now buttons, and the top one is the one, top toolbar is one that sees the most traffic. I don't have exact conversion stats for people converting once they get to the form. We do an annual giving drop-off email for those people that start the form and then don't finish to either ask them if they need help to call us, or a quick 3-question survey to fill out on why they had problems. I do know that for our giving day, we have over a 30% conversion rate, which is really high. Obviously, a giving day, you're going to have a higher conversion rate, but it's easier to track on that day.
Awesome. Alina, I'll go to you in just a minute. Mirko, or even Elaine or Kate, are you seeing any schools experimenting with retargeting? So knowing that they've gone to something, brought them to the giving form, and then they left. And then all of a sudden, there's an ad in their Facebook feed encouraging them to make a gift to Purdue or to Fordham. Anything you're trying in terms of tying in social and that ability to do, retargeted ads related to giving?
We're actually testing it this calendar year, and we're doing digital dialogue and retargeting. Right now, it just kicked off this week. So I'll have more to report afterwards. Day of Giving, we don't do retargeting. We do ads based on email addresses in our system. For Facebook, retargeting, it's hard on Day of Giving because of the short time frame of it and the quickness, but we're doing it right now for calendar year end.
Perfect. Mirko, anything you're seeing on that front from other schools?
I think it's definitely happening. It's early on, I would say. I mean, some schools have been doing it for a couple of years, but definitely not more than that. And I think a lot of schools are looking at that now as one of the options. But I think it makes sense. But there are also some other. So this isn't necessarily retargeting, but I think it invites the conversation about who to focus on perhaps a little bit differently in solicitations. So alumni event participants, right? People who are actually going to your events, or people who are volunteering for you or taking other actions already, maybe they become a different segment of your solicitations. They are more likely to support the institution because they're already engaged. So if you look at those as a different segment, perhaps, that's not pure retargeting from leaving the giving form, but it is retargeting from an action that they've already taken. I think that's something that's well worth doing also. And I think schools are sort of starting that. But again, I say it's a few schools at this point, but it's not broad brushstroke appeal across the board.
And I think it's something that constituents are starting to expect more of as you go online and shop for your fabulous new boots from insert company X, and then all of a sudden those boots show up in your Facebook or wherever else, or all over the internet, and it's like the boots keep following you. I think that it's something, and we do agree that constituents might be starting to expect more and more of as we see it across other realms of the internet, if you will.
I would say so. I think it's a little bit different with giving, and Kate and Elaine, feel free to jump in, because I don't know if that's how you want to portray your institution across social media regularly for these individuals, right? So maybe it's more of something about the institution that's the retargeting, and it leads back to more of a call to action, because in the end you want to continue to build that relationship. So I think that's more the key element for me than perhaps that giving call to action.
Yeah, and certainly wouldn't do anything like the boots are following me type thing. It's just, that type of transaction, but just being able to let donors know, that they're interested, and how can we make it easier for you, and you kind of brought that up as well. Elaine or Kate, anything to add on that piece?
We're having specific conversations about retargeting surrounding our crowdfunding campaigns, as well as a tool for a phone-a-thon fulfillment for pledges that are made but not yet fulfilled. So more to report again on this in a few months, but perhaps that might be a way to go, following someone's interest specifically in giving as it pertains to crowdfunding, or as a follow-up to a commitment that had already been made. So yeah, more to report soon.
And Kate, you may not have this yet, but Purdue is such a large university. We're having conversations now as we approach year end, instead of ads coming from Syracuse University, having them come from the specific school, from the communication school, from the business school. Is that something that you've tried yet with Purdue and some of your school and college partners, or haven't dived into that, where that ad is coming from?
Not really right now with ads. We do a fall college campaign that's sending from our deans on email, so kind of within that, but not really in the ad space. They really stick to themselves in the ad space.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how to manage that now, and making it all look like Syracuse University, but also having that feel of, oh, it's Newhouse that's asking, and of course I want to give back to the communication school. So that's a discussion I know a lot of colleagues are having as well on that front. So we talked about the form itself and getting folks to the form, and we touched on this a little bit, but really that whole experience after the gift has been made. What are some of the best practices? And Mirko, you talked about it a little bit with combining that confirmation email with a thank you. How do we thank donors? Does it have to be in the confirmation email? What are your thoughts on that whole thank you piece? After the donor presses submit, what happens next?
There are a couple of key elements. So the finish page is one of those things that you want to be looking at. And this is somebody who's just taken that action that you want them to take, right? They've just made that gift. Yep. So when they get to the finish page, what are they generally going to do? They feel like they're done, so they're going to leave your site. That finish page gives you an opportunity to recapture them, for lack of a better word, or at least keep them engaged on your site. So think about, okay, what can I put on that finish page? Maybe it's a thank you video. Maybe it's a link to an impact story about giving. Again, to Elaine's point earlier, something to make them feel really good about the action that they've just taken, which is supporting your institution. So I think that's one key place to look at. And then we touched on the confirmation email already, and the need to have a thank you message in that confirmation email. To ideally not send a print receipt if you have somebody giving online, and just have that serve as their confirmation, because again, it's more personalized to them, the action they've taken. But then there's no reason you can't follow up 3 days after somebody's made a gift, or 5 days after somebody's made a gift, with an email that sends on an automatic basis with just, hey, thanks so much for your gift, and here's what your gift will do. So more of that impact messaging to also start stewardship. But I think that's the other thing. As soon as somebody hits Give Now, they enter the stewardship cycle, right? So you want to think about, okay, how can we maintain that relationship so that when they're asked next year, they're still going to give? So what can we do on the stewardship side for that as well? Couple quick things on confirmation emails. The subject line is important. The subject line should say, thank you for your gift or support, and have your institution name in it, something like that. It shouldn't just say confirmation, right? I mean, that's a little thing, but again, it's something to think about.
Yeah.
Yep. Putting university branding in the confirmation email. It doesn't just have to be text that they're seeing. It should have your logo, and Elaine mentioned colors, all of those elements. And then, yeah, again, giving them an opportunity to share that they made a gift on social media. I think they're going to do that more with either crowdfunding campaigns or Day of Giving than they would just a normal gift. But giving them the opportunity in that confirmation email, I think, is also a good thing. Hey, if one person shares that they made a gift at a random time of year, better than nobody, right? It doesn't hurt to have it in the confirmation email. Those are just some things on confirmation email that are easy to adjust if you're not doing it, and that'll create a better donor experience.
Awesome. Kate, anything to add on that, the piece about the confirmation emails, sharing on social, kind of what you found successful at Purdue?
I think Mirko mentioned it, thanking them the way that they gave. So we do this for our Giving Day, and I think we can really expand upon it throughout the year, but we do stewardship for Day of Giving based on the way that they gave. So if they gave online, then so it's all 30 days after. If they gave online, they receive an email thank you with some sort of digital download. So last year, 2 years ago, we had an emoji keyboard. This year we had a social mosaic of all the different user-generated content. And then if they give via our phone-a-thon, they get a student thank you call. They give through a gift form or pledge form, then they get a student signed postcard in the mail. So really thanking them for the way they gave, I think, is really important.
Awesome. Elaine, how about on your front? Anything on Fordham's side other than the really feeling, I know you used the word Fordham-esque when you're not only encouraging them to visit your site, but thanking them as well. What have you found successful?
Yeah, we've recently invested in a platform called ThankView, which is a platform that allows sort of e-cards of sorts, but allows for us to record personalized videos to donors as follow-up. So we are starting to implement that, again, to Mirko and Kate's points earlier, to match, donors' giving habits with how they should be stewarded. We're having students record thank you videos that could be sent through this thank you platform a few days or a few weeks after that initial gift that's given online. So we'll have more to, again, report on how the success of those, but hopefully, this allows for donors to also have a chance to interact in some way with the students that they are choosing to directly support, and have that personalized touch, thank you touch, via email, which is the method that they've chosen to give in.
We talked about thank you a bit too. We haven't gone with them yet, but I do like that idea of the personal thank you. We talked about that for our Giving Day, and I think folks are coming to expect that kind of personal things as well. And video, as you know, is an awesome way to do it. Anything that we have such a quiet audience on Twitter. Anything that you think that I've missed or that we haven't touched on in terms of this whole, full experience of making a gift as we go into Giving Tuesday, or I guess anything that you folks are planning for the big day. We're going a little quieter this year since we just did a massive Giving Day. Kate and Elaine, anything going on for Giving Tuesday at your schools?
We do take a quieter approach because we have such a big day of giving, and the nonprofit realm really has a louder voice, I think, on Giving Tuesday, but we do an email and a few social posts.
Perfect. Elaine, how about you?
Similar, this will be a Giving Day Light. We're going to be highlighting all of our crowdfunding campaigns on Giving Tuesday. So we can really profile through niche and exciting projects, and it should have a different feeling than the Giving Day itself, because the message is different and the ask for support is for different areas between those days. Something that I think is, I would love to hear Mirko and Kate's thoughts is about recurring giving through online forms and how the institutions that you work with or that you're at handle or change or do anything to giving forms to make for a more seamless recurring giving experience.
Kate, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, recurring is an option on our form, and I think with our product enhancement on our online giving form right now, you can pre-fill or pre-select the recurring or perpetual option as well as the scheduled payment option. So we are testing that with a young alumni portion in our calendar year end email series. So they're going to get a recurring ask versus just a one-time gift ask. And then we do it we do anniversary emails. So once a month we send them if their last gift was a year ago. And so asking them to upgrade their gift. And then this year we've incorporated that recurring option on that email as well. So I think it'll be used a lot more in the future. It's really helpful in getting young alumni in the door at a lower amount, but a collectively higher amount. So I think it'll definitely be important.
Mm-hmm. Anything you've seen, Mirko, on best practices for the recurring gift option?
Yes, I think it's important to give them options of how often they want to give or whether they want a recurring gift. So having it on your form, I think, is clearly beneficial. And Kate alluded to the population that responds the most to that, which is your young alumni population, because you can do a message of, hey, give $5 a month or $10 a month. And I mean, that's nothing in the scheme of things, right? But after a year, you have a $120 gift or even a $60 gift from that individual who wouldn't give $60 at one time. So I think that's the population to focus on. I've also seen it work well for specific targeted campaigns for that population, so in support of a specific project. This is back to my days at Wilkes, but we had the football locker room project, and a lot of young alumni were encouraged to support it through perpetual giving, so recurring giving, and basically purchase a locker that way, but their gift continued after they paid whatever the price was for getting the locker. So not only did Wilkes fund the locker or get the amount of support for whatever the lockers were, but the giving continued after that fact because they used the recurring giving option, and it was more for the longer term support of the football program was the messaging that was used.
Awesome. I'm not sure I might be putting you on the spot here, Mirko, but here we go. Is IMOD's looking closely at how folks are consuming the giving form? Are they doing it from the desktop versus, you go on and pull Facebook stats and I can tell who's on their iPhone versus their Droid, and they're a female who's 42 living in Iowa. Can you, is IMOD's really starting to look at that mobile giving experience versus just going and sitting at the desktop?
So our forms are now built mobile friendly, and they have been for a number of years at this point, and that's our focus. I mean, all of the data that you look at generally is more of a focus on mobile. When you look at email data, we see over 60% mobile opens on certain emails for clients. It depends a little bit on the constituency, but with those trends, you want to make sure that your giving form is definitely mobile friendly. Elaine talked about the layout of the giving form, making it actually shorter looking on desktop by having fields side by side, and then they'll just fall under each other on mobile, again, to make that mobile experience a positive one, but also make the desktop experience better. I can't think of stats off the top of my head across that, and I think a lot of schools would be able to look at that through Google Analytics data. So if they have Google Analytics on their site, that's definitely one of the things to look at, to your point, Kim, is what percentage of your visitors to the site are on mobile devices compared to desktop. And my guess is, or what you should be seeing, is that mobile continues to increase. May not be at that 50% mark yet for the actual site, but the ones that I've looked at have hovered around anywhere between 30 and 45 to 50% in the last year or so, and that's changed pretty significantly from 3 to 4 years ago.
Right, very much so. Awesome. Well, with that, that's all I have. If you folks have anything else to add on this topic, we could go on for quite some time on online giving, especially as we go into a season where there is so much of it occurring. Elaine, Kate, or Mirko, any final parting words on this topic?
Actually, I just want to throw out another thing to Kate and Elaine, and that's around subject lines and anything that you've seen might have worked well. So I just looked at a study recently, and people get an average of, I think it was 116 marketing type emails a day. So with Giving Tuesday coming up, or with whatever end of year solicitations you're doing, how do you get your emails to stand out? What we tend to recommend is, definitely think about your subject line and avoid some of the typical last chance type communication and focus it more on your institution and impact. But I wonder if Elaine and Kate have any stories about specific subject lines that did work well.
Yeah, we see a higher open rate when we include their name. So the personalization is key. Obviously, and even not last chance, but putting a specific day, we see a higher open rate with that, but that's really at year end. But I think really the theme, if we started it in 2014, was the great opportunities or impact and moving the world forward. So using some of those buzz phrases within the subject line has helped.
Yeah, similarly, when we include a sender name as opposed to the name of the institution itself, we've also seen a higher open rate. So we've likely for Giving Tuesday, we'll include the name of the VP of Development or the Director of Development for the Fordham Fund as opposed to Fordham University, as we expect that to have a higher open rate. Something else that I would, just last thought, would want to mention, going back to our earlier point of the trend of giving forms perhaps becoming more Amazon-esque and shorter. Look at your institution to see where other investments might be able to be made in capturing and updating your constituent data. Maybe that's a place for phone. Maybe there is an opportunity for data enhancement and investment elsewhere within your institution. Does the giving form truly need to be the place where we capture and refresh that information, or are there other systems in place that are working for you at your institution where you can invest more time and effort to really capture and refresh information in a meaningful way?
Really good point. Even if it's event registration or other opportunities where we can garner that information and then just cross-reference it. No, I think that's a great point. Thank you. Well, good. Monday the 13th, 15 days to go until Giving Tuesday and end of year, about a month and a half. Mirko, Kate, and Elaine, thank you so much for giving of your time this afternoon to share what's worked for you at Fordham, at Purdue, and Mirko, with all the clients you work with at iModules. We're very grateful to iModules for sponsoring this episode, and to M. Stoner for really being the overarching voice of Higher Ed Live. And I'm grateful to all of you. So thank you, and good luck as year end approaches.
Thank you.
Awesome.